let's jump in. Why do people struggle so much to stick to a diet?
Well, there's several factors, and people get hung up often on the details, but it's better if we break it down first into kind of some of the domains that can cause the problem. So some of the domains are one, the mindset of the diet. Two is some of the cultural and social or the context in which you're dieting, which includes your work life, your home life, how much you exercise, your where you socialize, and then the third domain, which we focus all of our attention on, which arguably has less of the impact, is the actual diet itself.
Right.
So if we look at domain one, where I talked about the mindset, an idea behind it is if you go into a diet because there's a problem with your body and you have to change and you can't wait to have a cheat day and eat a treat, in our subconscious, we're treating the diet like a punishment, and everything else that kind of makes a diet hard, like eating something outside of the plan, as a reward. So then you automatically kind of create this internal resistance to the diet.
Yeah, so now you're kind of making a good and evil kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and that's the number one driver for failure is we just believe that the diet is bad subconsciously,
Right.
because it's making us do something that we don't want to do.
Kind of a victim to our own choice of dieting.
Yeah, we view it as a punishment, we're punishing ourselves, and as humans, we resist punishment, people controlling us.
Can you kind of speak to our philosophy about a diet or about a nutrition and a meal plan?
Absolutely, and that will fall well into kind of that third contextual bucket the third bucket I talked about, which is the diet parameters itself. Often people will participate or take on a diet plan that is hyper restrictive of one nutrient, which ends up kind of creating, again, this feeling or philosophy of good and bad, enemy, ally, enemy, ally. Certain foods are your allies, certain foods are your enemies, and you demonize or you make, a certain food item a hero. And then anytime you deviate from that, you're like, oh, okay, well, I point for the enemy or point for me, rather than our philosophy, like you alluded to and asked about, is a general balanced approach.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting sufficient protein to support our body's structure?
Right.
Sufficient fat to support our body's hormones and energy? And then are we getting sufficient carbohydrates depending on our activity level, lifestyle, and how far we are into our ability to exercise and diet?
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting enough energy, and just kind of supporting our mood and our sleep and exercise trends?
Yeah, that seems pretty simple and straightforward. And you kind of spoke to a few reasons why we don't stick to it, but is it simpler than that? Is it more complicated? Why don't people just stick to this foundational structure of these three things? I mean, I guess I have a hard time with it sometimes, but sometimes I want to go out and eat, or my wife and kids want a certain thing. I mean, is there anything else like that kind of interrupts the simplicity in sticking to that diet?
Absolutely. You bring up a point that kind of brings into that third domain, which I mentioned, is the context in which we're dieting, or the context in which we are following a certain lifestyle or diet choice.
Right.
Again, even just that word dieting is dieting, that's bad, or
if I have a hard time, I kind of want to keep putting it in.
You're gonna lose because you're dieting, But our diet, whatever our diet is, in the context of our lives, like you said, what if my kids want this or that? What if my wife wants this or that? What if they don't like this? Or I'm trying to do lower carbohydrates because I feel sharper in my mind, but my family always wants a lot of starchy foods.
Right. Understand that.
So then, the reason people fail, now that we kind of have this third piece, the context in which we're dieting, is one, on top of the hierarchy is, what's our mindset going into? Are we rewarding ourselves with foods that will help us feel good, move well, rest when we need to rest, heal when we need to heal? Are we rewarding ourselves, or are we punishing our bodies into a better shape?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Right.
just that feeling right there is, I tell myself, I'm going to reward myself with this thing, even if it's not my favorite taste. I'm rewarding my body. My taste buds are not the only consideration for my diet. I do eat really yummy foods and treats sometimes,
Same.
but my taste buds are this much of my body, so maybe it should be this much of my diet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just appealing to only my taste buds.
Right.
And then the rest of my body is a lot more than my taste buds, so the most of my diet should probably be appealing to my body.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's kind of the psychological side right there, is I'm rewarding my body with good foods. We're intentionally choosing things, not being imposed upon. And then we choose the diet that supports us, right? Start with a well-rounded diet. As you try different things, you can adjust the macros, the micronutrients, but try and get a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, foods, whole foods, meats, even some whole grains, even some simplified grains, right? Whatever
Right.
in balance, right? Everything can be part of the diet. Even if you want a cup of juice, you can have that if you plan for it. So then you make sure the numbers work.
Yeah. Same thing you do
Right.
with a budget for finances, right?
And then you do that for context. So you bring up a good point, budgeting for family. So let me ask you this, and you tell me how you think it would work. Say this is your budget, but in 3 months, you want to take your family on a trip.
Mhm.
That's going to cost X amount.
Right.
You only have so much money a month. What do you have to do with your current budget?
We're gonna have to cut a few things out so I can save it for something I want to do later.
Exactly. So that's where we have to, like you said, budgeting is great. You know, we budget our food, we budget our calories. You have to consider the context. For me, for example, I eat a much lower carbohydrate meals during work,
Easier to do that.
because at night my family likes some starchy things. I got little kids; they gotta grow. You really don't want them hyper restricted, because carbohydrates and insulin and those kind of things along that
Yes.
in that area, we don't need to get into the weeds, but they help promote normal growth of our
Right.
kids. All right, the insulin and all the things that are involved in carbohydrate processing. It's not just for the food processing, but also signals important things in our bodies. All right, so my kids need those.
Mhm.
Let's just leave it at that. Our kids need those. So either I need to plan meals with my wife if she's on board, or I'll cook, and I'll make a meal that's got rice on the side,
Mm-hmm.
not just a big old casserole,
Right.
because that's everything in one. You get a scoop of whatever's in there.
Yeah. It's not as quite measured out.
But we like tacos. I don't know why, but my family loves to put rice on their tacos. I'm
I don't
like,
know that
save
either.
the space for the
That's
meat and the
right.
salsa and the sauce and the pickled vegetables.
Peppers. Yeah, all this. Good
Save the
stuff.
room for that.
That's
That's
right.
what I love, right? So they put it on. Or we made last night, we had like a Greek bowl with like a yellow, like a turmeric lemon rice. I just had a couple tablespoons just to give me a little bit of flavor and texture, whereas everyone else had a little bit more.
Right.
So you have to use the context to budget, because we can't isolate ourselves from the society, the culture, even the microculture of our family,
Mhm.
to be in a diet, because that can build walls, cause resentment or friction in the family,
Yeah.
just over how are we going to eat what we need to eat and everyone get what they want. So yeah, that using your context to budget, and then to use tools like, oh, I can work an extra shift to get a little extra money.
Right.
I can make this meal that allows them to eat what they want and eat, and me to eat what I want and eat in the same meal, but in a slightly different balance.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I do. Let them have, like you said, a little bit more of this, and I have a little bit more protein or whatever. And I'm larger than them, so I need a little bit more. But you spoke to, you referenced carbs a lot. Why is there such a controversy around carbs?
That is a great question. Let's pick the two most extreme sides.
Love
You need insulin to grow. Carbohydrate stimulate insulin,
insulin.
right?
Isn't that bad?
And that's what we talk about with diabetes, right? Oh, insulin's bad, sugar's bad, it's
Yeah.
all bad. Our body, if it's in our body, it's good for us. Everything our body does is to try and stay alive. So it's there to process our environment and to keep us alive in our environment. So that's the one side. Insulin, carbs, bad. No insulin, no carbs, good.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the two sides of things. You need fat and you need protein, you don't need carbs.
Right.
And that's true. While you don't need them to live, you do need them. As the intensity of exercise increases, you need it.
Yeah, because
So
I feel real sluggish if I don't have it.
If you're running like a zone 3-4, you're already 80% of your substrate, your body's 80% of your energy is coming from carbohydrates stored in your liver and your muscles, called glycogen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to exercise very hard before your body starts to use that. So people will slash their carbs, completely get rid of them. And one of the reasons why I think it's sticking is because it's easy. Not necessarily easy to how you feel without carbohydrates, but it's easy to not add rice. It's easy to just take the bun off the hamburger and eat everything in the middle. Usually starches are an additive, whereas fats are part of the cooking process.
Yeah.
It's just infused in through the
Yes.
cooking process, so it's a lot harder to adjust the fats, or it's in the food itself,
Yep.
in the meat, right?
Yep.
But there are also circumstances in which ketogenic state in our body, or a state achieved by having very low carbohydrates typically, is really beneficial for our physiology, for treating kids with epilepsy, stops seizures, and that's why it was initially invented. It's really good for decreasing neural inflammation, for helping us focus. You know, whenever we get the ketones flowing, our brains like carbs and ketones and lactate. So our brain can use everything because it doesn't want to die. Right? It's really good at not dying. It hogs most of our, 20% of our energy, being only a couple pounds of our body weight.
Right.
But it's really easy to get rid of carbs. There are a lot of good reasons to not eat carbs, but generally speaking, they're an important part of our diet for the average person. But then if you get on Instagram or you go read a blog, well, that's not average people.
No,
That's
not
the
typically.
that's the most ripped, the longest running, the whatever, the best,
Yeah.
the fastest, the most glamorous. So then we try and conflate that to, well, everybody needs to do that.
Right. So, if you had to sum it up, what would you say is why most people fail?
I would say the number one reason people fail is because it's too hard.
Okay.
And that, of course, you just can't pinpoint one thing like, oh, carbs is why people fail, or people's family is why they fail. But they choose a task that's a goal that's too lofty. Immediately they want to lose 50 pounds, which is disheartening. You immediately feel defeated after the first week because the first week was hard and you hardly made any progress.
The scale didn't move.
Right, so they have a big goal and a short time frame to do it in their mind, they just think, well, it should be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, even if we pick a diet that's too extreme or too challenging, we exercise too hard and don't supply our body with what it needs. We don't sleep enough, we don't exercise enough. All those things drive a desire to consume more so our body can handle the stress. And then we just don't. Contextually, it's too hard. Family, I'm never going to eat. Well, I mean, in this area, for example, where we live, alpha-gal is common.
Yeah, it's rampant.
All of a sudden, one of your family members can't eat any mammalian products.
Can't have it in the house sometimes.
Now, none of the family does. Usually the family's supportive, but it makes it hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Even when they're away from their family, they feel like they're betraying them if they eat a hamburger. Because well, my family can't eat it, I can't eat it, I don't want to, betray them or whatever. And so
sometimes there's a medical family reason that kind of keeps you back, and then sometimes there's just other families not on board necessarily, or on the same page, or in the same that same health mindset in their own life.
Yeah, so the medical example is just really it has to be done, so everyone has to do it.
Right.
But a lot of times people feel like they have to change their family's lifestyle for this one family member's goal.
Yeah, that's hard.
So usually it's too big of a goal, and too short of a time frame. They pick too extreme of a diet that doesn't support their physiology and the change of their body, and it just makes it that much harder if it disrupts their life.
So it kind of helps to have a community of like-minded people, or other people to encourage you, which was what I found working with you. That's helped. It's helped me adhere to it and stick to it. but you know, like you said, had said earlier, like if sometimes you'll just cook, like you do, we do both cook a lot for our families, and sometimes that allows us to go ahead and kind of structure those meals. I've talked to a few people that are single and they have a harder time because like I don't know how to cook for one person, or I just don't want to cook for one person.
Yeah.
So I see that's also hard. But hey, leftovers are great.
True. Meal
And
prep.
then, yeah, you already meal prep because you like it, you know, instead of cooking for just
Cook for
one person, you cook for four. So then you have the next 4 meals, or at least the next 4 dinners. And I found that to be super helpful. I mean, chicken thighs are, I can make them a bunch of different ways, but no, that, I think that's sums it up really well on how to just adhere to this diet, because you explained the hard points that everybody deals with.
So to really sum it up, pick a goal that's not outrageous, because then once you reach it, you'll feel awesome, build momentum, and you can set another goal.
Yeah.
So pick a goal that will elevate you emotionally, psychologically. Budget. Know when you tend to overeat, or in what social situations you're going to want to eat to participate in that, and adjust the rest of your week to match that. And then start with a foundational wide variety of whole foods, avoiding ultra processed, pre-made, oily, ultra carbohydrate foods, because it's just a ton of calories in a small space and designed to make you hungry.
Yeah.
But eat whole foods. Consider the context of your life, when you're going to want to eat more, tend to eat more, when you can control it extra and eat a little less, but still support your body, feeling good, and pick a small goal that you can reach that makes you feel good.
Yep.
So.
Well, that's real good. Hey, click to this next video if you want to hear a little bit about kind of our thoughts and conversation on the new protein fad and phase of everything. This is protein packed.
Absolutely. Stay tuned.